Welcome to LiveDaf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's Daf HaYomi. Zevachim Daf Memches. We begin right on top, parshanut-torah. Shal Yom Kippurim B'chulu. Back to the Mishnah, where we learned that the Kaddish HaKaddishim, such as Oila, Chatas, Asham, all need to be processed on the north side of the Azara. So the Shechita is bit Safain, the Kabbalah collection of the blood is in Safain. Now interestingly, although the Mishnah begins with this general statement that Kaddish HaKaddashim are done in Safain, but in terms of when it goes into the itemized list, which one is cited first? So, although as we're going to see in a second, where does the Torah actually mention Safain? Which carbon does the Torah specify as requiring its shechita to be performed in Safain of the Azara? So actually it's the Oila. Then the Psukim compare Chatas to Oila, same place. As the Oila is done, likewise the Chatas. So wouldn't you think, when the Mishnah presents a list of Safain-oriented karbanos, which one would be listed first? You would think it's the prototype, the first point of reference, which is an Oila. Says the Gemara Michti. Let's analyze the Psukim. Safain. This Safain location, where is it said? Ba'oila, it's said by the Oila. Why isn't Oila presented first in the Mishnah, rather than going to parshanut-torah Yom Kippurim, which is a variation of Chatas? First go to the prime example, which is the Oila, and then to the rest. Nisni Oila Bereishit. The answer is Chatas, which is learned from a drasha. It's more dear to the Tana because it came with effort. I did the Asi Midrasha. Since it's learned from a drasha, Chavivale, it's more dear to the Tana, and that's why it's cited as number one. Now, where do we have the drasha? That's by the external karbanos chatas. We have two categories of chatas, right? There's the external chatas, which is processed outside in the Azara. We have the internal one, the parshanut-torah Yom Kippurim, whose blood is placed inside, and the Kaddish HaKaddashim and the Heichel. So, wouldn't you say that the chatas hachitzona should be presented first in the Mishnah, because actually that's where it says. That's where the Torah makes that correlation, the same place as the Oila is processed, likewise the Chatas. So why does the Mishnah choose to discuss first the internal karbanos Chatas, and only then the external ones? B'nisnei, it should say Chatois HaChitzonos B'reisha. Shouldn't they go first? The answer is, once again, I did the Nichnas Daman L'Fnim, since the internal ones, blood, are taken all the way inside to the Kaddish HaKaddashim. It's a carbon of higher standards, of a higher level. Chavivale, once again, that's also dear, more dear to the Tana. That's why he presents it first before the other ones. Okay, now let's go back to basics. So we're in fact with Sfaina, what do we find? The Torah mentioning Safain by the Oila, which is the source material for the other ones. The pasuk says, "V'shachat oisay al yarech mizbeach Safaina." Shechita of the Oila is on the side of the mizbeach. Which side? Safain side. Ashkan Mentzain. Now there are two types of Oila. There's the lighter animal Oila, the sheep, the goat, and we have the bakar, the cattle, the heavy animals. Where, in the context of which one, do we find this Safain requirement? Ashkan Mentzain. That's related to the lighter animals. So how do you know that Ben Bakar, Manala, how do you know that also requires Safain? Amakra. The answer is like this. Because earlier the Torah mentioned the Ben Bakar. And then afterwards it says V'im minat tzoin, and if he chooses to bring one from tzoin. Vav, the V'im is that connector. It connects the two chapters, and it makes sort of a backwards connection. Oh Makra, the pasuk says V'im minat tzoin. The Vav of the Im, Vav is Moisval in Rishon. It connects the second discussion to the former discussion. So connects Tzayin, which is related later, to the earlier discussion, which is Bakar, earlier, before the Tzayin. So typically, a vav allows the number 2 to connect to number 1. Whatever applies to the earlier one, v connects to the next one as well. But here we're going backwards. V'yilmad elyon mitacht, have the upper, former discussion, the one upstairs, Ben Bakar, learn from the later discussion, from Tzayin. Just like Safan applies to Tzayin, applies to Bakar as well. V'yilmad elyon mitacht. Well, says the Gemara, that's not so simple. Hanicha, that works l'madamar according to the opinion that says l'meidim, you can learn that way. You can learn backwards. Ella madamar emilemer, according to the Shita, you can't learn that way. Only forward, not in the reverse. Michael Amemas, now we're stuck. Safan by them in Bakar, how do we know? This Sani, where do we find such a, seemingly such a discussion? Whether the connecting Vav can go both ways. Sani, we have a discussion regarding one who committed Me'ilah. He diverted Hegdish property for personal use. So typically, he would be liable to the process of Me'ilah, he has to bring a karba, etc. What if he's not sure? Not sure. He took something, was it Hegdish, was it not? Now, an uncertainty, a suffix with respect to a regular Avera which has potential for severe consequence, a kares Avera, he's not sure whether you ate chaylev. If he knows for sure, he brings a karban chatas. A chatas is sort of the flip side of kares, if done intentionally. So intentional is kares, shogeg is chatas, he's not sure. This is a suffix. He ate something, was it chaylev, was it not? There is a special karban called asham tali, which Rashi says it's called tali because it suspends the retribution lahagin min yisurim, to protect him from yisurim until he discovers the real fact that that he did sin, and he brings a regular karban. So that's the process applied to an uncertain karban chata situation. What about an uncertain me'ilah situation? There's no explicit discussion in the Torah about it. We have a discussion about asham tali. Presumably it applies to a chet, right? Vim nefesh, sechta, right? Chet is the kares chata situation. What about a me'ilah situation? Now, if he knows he was ma'il, he brings an asham, a regular asham. If he's not sure, does he bring an asham tali? Rabbi Kiva says yes. Chachamim say no. What's the machlekes based on? So we assume it's based on this question, whether a vav can generate a double connection. Because in the previous psukim, the pasuk speaks about a regular standard asham. Asham me'ilah is for one who misused hegdish material. And then we have a discussion regarding asham tali. The Sadya, as we learned in the Brisa, v'im nefesh. That vav, it's a connection to teach us l'chayiv al safek me'ilah asham tali. That if one encounters a safek me'ilah, he also brings an asham tali. So the v'im nefesh, which discusses asham tali, connects to the previous presentation, which speaks about the act of me'ilah, to tell you that if it's vadai, it's an asham me'ilah. If it's a safek me'ilah, asham tali applies as well. Divrei, whose sheet is that, Rebbe Kiv? Chamim Paitrim? No, there's no asham tali for safek me'ilah. My lab, let's assume, like this revolves around whether to apply the vav in this context. Mar savar. Rebbe Kiva says Lameidim, we can learn upstairs from downstairs. So the prior experience, the me'ilah experience, if it should be encountered in a suffix situation, you connect to the carbon downstairs asham tali. Umar savar aim Lameidim. Chachamim disagree. You can't connect the previous me'ilah discussion to the next discussion of the asham tali. It doesn't apply to me'ilah. Amar Papa, no, the Kuliyam Lameidim perhaps all agree that generally you can learn through a vav. You know why the Rabban in this case do not apply asham tali to me'ilah? Because we have a gzera shava that undoes that theory. Nemar kan mitzvos. We have the word mitzvos over here by the asham tali. Nemar b'chatos chaylev mitzvos. And elsewhere, where the Torah discusses one who sinned by eating chaylev, which is the classic sin related to korban chatas, it's a common thing. It says over there mitzvos. So we connect to teach that asham tali only applies strictly to a case where he was involved in a chatas kares situation, not in a me'ila situation. Malahalan, just like over there by the chatas, we're speaking about dover shachayav and alzdoine kares v'al shigase chatas. It's an encounter which would theoretically generate kares if done intentionally, and therefore unintentionally is a chatas. Afkan here as well, the asham tali applies strictly to an uncertain encounter with a severe sin such as that, but not me'ila. Shechayav and alzdoine kares ashgase chatas, but not to a me'ila situation, which has a different set of rules. It's an asham, it's a different system. There's no kares, of course. So typically a vav connects, but here we have a gzera shava that overrides. Rekiva, sure, he has a gzera shava as well, but he learns something else from the gzera shava, in which case it won't interfere with the vav connector to apply asham tali to meila. What does he learn from the gzera shava? Ma lahalan bikvu, afkan bikvu. Just like over there by the chatas, it discusses a fixed entity, fixed carbon, a chatas, animal carbon. Afkan b'kvur. Likewise over here by the asham tali, it only applies to an uncertain case, which involves a sin, which would theoretically generate a fixed carbon if confirmed as having been committed, as opposed to la fuke chatas the tumas migdash ukdashav. Suppose he's uncertain whether he entered the Beis Hamikdash when he was tamei, tumas migdash, who ate karbanos when he was tamei. That generates a different system of karbanos. It's the oil of yeredu is up and down, fluctuating, flexible, financial, ability based type of carbon. Animal, birds, mincha, right? The oil of yeredu. So that type of experience, even if it encountered b'safek, would not generate an asham tali. But in terms of meila, yeah, asham tali applies to meila as well. Ve'rabbanan, they respond. You agree that you're going to connect the asham tali to the chatas by way of gzera shava. You can't limit the gzera shava. Only learn some things and not others. Once we have gzera shava, it's an open highway. So you're compelled to fully connect the asham tali to the chata situation, telling us that asham tali is limited strictly to a chatas kares scenario, not to meila, which has a different system. No, so does Rabbi Akiva do with that argument? If he agrees to connect the asham tali to the chatas, you have to connect it all the way. You're right. The machlokes here is due to the fact that in addition to the gzera shava, which pulls us in one direction, that an asham tali applies only to a chatas kares situation, we have on the other hand a hekish by way of that vav which connects, very direct connection between asham tali and the previous psukim, speaks about meila. Rabbi Akiva sabr v'im nefesh ksiv vav moisav alin rishayin. You're connecting the asham tali to the previous meila situation. Rabbanan nabi ksiv v'im nefesh. Okay, Rabbanan as well. Doesn't it say v'im nefesh to connect? Leimim okamivli, perhaps the machlokes is as follows: which one is superior? When you have a conflict between gzera shava and hekesh, which one rules the day? The Mar Savar Hekesh Adif, Rabbi Akiva says Hekesh is stronger. Umar Savar Gzera Shava, the Chacham say Gzera Shava is stronger. Is that the machlek? No, you don't have to say that. Kul Yama Hekesh Adif, perhaps all agree Hekesh is stronger. V'amri lech Rabbanan, and therefore the Rabbanan tell you, yeah, we connect, but not with respect to that asham tali applies to meila. No. Tachtinu the gomer me'elyin. It's the opposite. Downstairs will learn from upstairs. The asham tali will learn something from the meila discussion discussed previously to tell you how much is the asham meant to cost. There's a minimum requirement. You can't just bring like a cheap chatas. A chatas has no minimum value requirement. You can bring a chatas that's worth a dime, but an asham has to cost you money. La asham bekeser shkolim. To tell you that just like a Asham Mi'ila cost Kesef Shkolim, two Kesef, 2 Shkolim, right? $2, right? So if he certainly diverted Hegdish money, misused Hegdish money, he has to bring a regular Asham, Kesef Shkolim. Likewise, downstairs when we speak about the Asham Tali, even though it's just a suffix, unconfirmed encounter, that Asham, likewise with the Asham Tali, which according to Rabban is speaking about an unconfirmed suffix encounter with Chaylev, not Hegdish material. An Asham Tali's got a cost. Lo Asham b'kesef shkolim. So in terms of value, that's what we connect. The two parashas to each other. Now, Shalei Taima, what's the point? Why would I think that the Asham Tali doesn't have that minimum, value requirement like a regular Asham? Because one can argue and say, after all, if it was actually confirmed that he ate a chaylev, that would trigger a chatas, which can cost you a dime. So now that he's not sure, so this temporary stopgap, this temporary, so to speak, carbon, right? Asham Tali, which is, Rashi said, there to protect you temporarily. How could that cost more than a chatas? You shouldn't argue and say, how could the suffix obligation be more costly than the vadai chatas? Just like if he was confirmed to have sinned, he would bring a chatas, cost him a danka, a cheap coin, a cheap animal. Likewise, if it's a suffix that he ate chaylev, Asham Tali can also cost you the minimum. No, says the Torah. Achatos. The Rebbeinu explains when you feel guilty, you know you did a mistake, you do tshuva. So you don't need such an expensive carbon to drive home the point. But when it's uncertain, it's up in the air, well, I didn't do it, I probably didn't do it. The feelings of tshuva aren't really so, on the surface. So Torah says, bring a bigger carbon. Make a statement. Express your sorriness for having encountered. Even a suffix is also something that requires teshuvah. Why did Hashem had you should be more careful, etc., right? Okay, so bottom line is, according to the Rabbanan, we have two formulas of connection. On the one hand, we connect the Asham Tali to the standard chatas procedure to tell you that Asham Tali only applies to a suffix chatas encounter, which means to say suffix that he ate chaylev, which would typically generate chatas kares, intentional, unintentional, right? So if it's a suffix, it's an Asham Tali. It doesn't apply to Me'ilah, which runs a different system. We have another connection, connecting Asham Tali to the previous parsha of Me'ilah, with respect to establishing the minimum value, the cost value of this Asham Tali. But it's not to say that Asham Tali applies to suffix Me'ilah. That's Rabbi Akiva's sheet. Now, according to Rabbi Akiva, he also has a Gzera Shava and the Hekesh. But according to him, the Gzera Shava from Asham Tali to Chatas is limited to tell you that Asham Tali only applies to Kvu'ah situations. Experiences would generate fixed karbanis, like a chatas, but not to an tumas midash, ukadashav, which generates a fluctuating carbon. At the same time, he says it applies to Me'ilah as well, via this connection of Vav, connecting Asham Tali to the previous parsha of Me'ilah. Now, Rabbi Akiva has svara minole. Rabbi Akiva used this connection of Vav, as we just explained, that Asham Tali applies to Me'ilah, which according to Rabbanan, the connection was for value. Rabbi Akiva, how does he know the value requirement? You're going to use the connection for the other. Rabbi Akiva, how does he know this halacha? Nafkala, he learns it from a different pasuk. Asham. This is the general Asham system. It's one package. Torah, Achas, Kol Hashamayis, to tell you all Hashamayis run the same system. and it costs you kesef shkolim. Teinach man dislay teiras. That works, if you apply teiras in this fashion, to sort of put it in one collective basket. Mandalas like Torahs, but according to the Shita, Menachos Daf Gimel, who doesn't necessarily apply Torahs in this way, so Meicha Gamar. So back to the question. How do we know how much the Asham Toli is meant to cost you? The answer is Gamar be'erkecha be'erkecha. By Asham Toli it says be'erkecha, by a different type of Asham Gazeles it says be'erkecha. And we learn from Asham Me'ilois, where it says be'erkecha kesef shkolim, so it's going to cost you $2. That works if you have the word be'erkecha in your carbon. But there's a carbon which doesn't have, a type of asham doesn't have the word be'erkecha. Asham shivcha charufa, that type of carbon which doesn't have the word be'erkecha. So how does he know it costs you 2 shkolim? What do you do there? Gama ba'ayil ba'ayil. Over there it says the word ba'ayil, and by the other one it says ba'ayil as well, so we connect, and we know that it's going to cost you 2 shkolim. Okay, so in summation, it's by the oila where the Torah tells us tzafan is required, and we learn chatas from oila. Chatas chitzonis, chatas apnimiyos. Now by oila itself, how do we know that it applies to the ben bakar, just as the ben soin? We have the vav. So initially we thought that there's a shaila, question whether we make this backwards connection with a vav. We conclude that all agree it's a valid method. So we say Ben Bakar, which is stated prior to Ben Tzayin, connects down to Ben Tzayin through the Vav, and Tzafan is required all around. But a machlek is whether Asham Tali applies to Safek Me'ila. Rukiva says yes, we're going to say no. We have a Hekesh, Zera Shava, as we just discussed. Okay, so the Oila we know requires Tzafan. What about a Chatas? Chatas learns from Oila. Okay, so where's the pasuk that makes that connection? Chatas Menolon. The boy Tzafan. How do we know Tzafan applies to Chatas? So what the Chsiv, we have a pasuk of a Shachatas HaChatas. Where does he shech the Chatas? Makom Oila. Same location as the Oila. Good. Ashkan Shchita, we've established Shchita of Chatas is in Tzafan. Kabbalah B'Nolan, what about the Kabbalah of the Dam? The Chsiv Elokach HaKoyim Dam HaChatas, which is stated right after the Shchita. Presumably, same location. So the animal that's now, whose blood is now being received, is situated in Tzafan. Mekabel Atzma Minola, what about the Kohen himself? Perhaps he can stand right across the line and lean over. How do we know he needs to be on the Tzafan side? Amakra v'lokach. V'lokach, the Kohen does the Kabbalah, and we sort of rearrange the words, the letters. Instead of v'lokach, we learn loikach. Lamed vav, and then kach. He's got to take himself and bring him over to himself over to the right location. So he's part of the process. He has to be standing with Tzafan as well. Ashkel mitzvah. Okay, we established the requirement. La'akib minayin. What do we know about it being critical and essential? Right? Throughout Kachim, we always have this question. Unless we have a repetition to emphasize, it's required, but it's not essential. It's not critical. How do we know Tzafan is ma'akiv? Amakra. He says, no, krach. We have actually another pasuk. Before we begin, just meant to know that actually we'll find 4 places where the Torah discusses Tzafan by the Chatas. One is in a general sense. A Chatas is in the same place as the Oila. Then we have another pasuk coming up in a second that the carbon Chatas of a Nasi, a soyer, a goat that a Nasi brings, a king, is done in Tzafan, the same place as the Oila. Then we have another 2 psukim regarding private people bringing a carbon. We have the kivsa, the goat, the sheep, and the seira, the goat, and those places as well. Torah says it's got to be the same place as the oil. So we have a total of 4 sources by chatas to tell you that it's required, it's critical, regardless of any type of chatos. You need the same tzafan as the oil. Okay, let's see. La'akiv minayin. How do we know that it's ma'akiv? Kurachim neksiv. We have another pasuk by the soyer nasi, where it says v'shachat oisei makam ashish chadas oila. Shachat oisei, same place as the oila. Tanya we learned in the brisa. Where is that? Heichan oila nishchata. Where do you do shchita on the oila? But tzafan in the north of the Azar after but tzafan. Likewise, soyer nasi is in tzafan. So this is an extra pasuk to emphasize the tzafan requirement and in fact that it's critical. Says the Gemara, really? Why? Right. So we didn't finish. Basically, we're going to highlight that it's extra, and it's just coming to tell you that it's me'akev. Is this where you have to learn? The Tzafin concept. Well, like we have the pasuk, a general pasuk, which seems to apply to all types of variations of chatas. The shchitas hachatas takes place in the same place as the oila. Halama yatsa. So why does the Torah in fact single out the soyer of the nasi for tzafin to tell you, to establish a set place, shem le'shachta but tzafin pasal. If you didn't do it, it's pasal. So it's telling you that in fact it's essential. Asks the Gemara, hold it. It's not so simple. You think it's just a repetition to emphasize how important it is? You're telling me that it was highlighted for this reason. No, perhaps just the opposite. And it's actually coming to exclude, to limit. That tzafin only applies to soyer nasi, but not to the other goat karbanos chatas, like the soyer Yom Kippurim, soyer avodah zarah, the ones on Yom Tov. Maybe the other goats are excluded. Only this one is in. Those are out from tzafin. Tzafin doesn't apply to other goats. Comes another pasuk. And Rashi says this is by the goat, a private person's goat, chatas. Do it where this oil is done. So now we covered all the goats. It tells you about all the types of karbanos chatas, including goats. Tzafin is required. Okay, so now you know all goats are in. Now you know that the soyer nasi, which is sort of repeated, right? To tell you that it's me'akev. Ashkan, we've established soyer nasi. The soyer of the nasi is required and is important, is essential. Bein l'mitzvah, bein l'akev. Shachat nami. Likewise, all other karbanos chatas, including goats, instead of being out, we just included everything. Nami ashkan l'mitzvah, we know that it's required, but we only know that's required. We don't know that's me'akev. We don't have a repetition yet. L'akev, but no, how do we know it's actually critical? We have another pasuk, yet a fourth pasuk. Bekibsa. So a private person's karban chatas, if brought in a sheep fashion, Torah emphasizes tzafin, same as the oila. Chsev bekivsa, chsev betzira. It says it by the kivsa. It says it by in addition to the seira, as we just mentioned, to tell you that in fact tzafin is essential all around. Okay, so now let's go back to that pasuk by the soyer nasi. V'shachat oisai. Shecht this one. Now, we've just clarified. Tzafin is all around. Any chatas, any variation. So why oisai, which is a limiting term, only this and nothing else? What are we trying to exclude? Elo oisai lamali. It's needed for the following halacha. Look at the sanya. Brisa speaks about soyer nachshem, last week's parsha. Nachshem ben Aminadav and all the Nasiim brought special karbanos, including a karban chatas, which wasn't really addressing a sin. It was called a chatas, but it was part of the dedication process of the Mishkan. A regular karban chatas that a nasi brings, right, for doing a chet, is processed in the tzafin, but not the one that Nachshon brings. So that's why we need a miut, oisai, to exclude soyer nachshon. Rashi says, Sirei, Chanuk Sanasiyim, Shlibo al Chet, it's coming to inaugurate the Mishkan, not coming to sin, to accommodate sin. Different system. Now, why would I think soyer nachshon requires tzafin? The Sanya. V'samach yodeh al rosh hasoyer. Pasuk says, Yidu smicha al rosh hasoyer. Explains Rashi. It's an extra, lengthy narration. It could have just said v'samach al roisha, samach yod al roisha. Well, roisha soyer. L'rabbis soyer nachshon l'smicha. Here it's coming to actually expand it and include soyer nachshon that requires smicha as well. The Rebbe Yehuda. So going to Rebbe Yehuda, as we're going to see in a minute. since we sort of treat Sar Nachshin like a regular chatas to a certain extent, and it's smicha like any other chatas, I would think tzafin as well. That's why we need a pasuk. V'shachat oisei, only the regular chatas is in tzafay, but not Sar Nachshin. But in any case, let's just finish the brayz. Reb Shimon Omer, the Rabbi says, "Cham l'smicha." Not coming to add smicha to Sar Nachshin, only to Sar Rabbi Zar. Okay, so perhaps I would think Hoyel. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, Hoyel, since we covered Sar Nachshin, included him in the smicha requirement like any other chatas, perhaps for tzafain as well. That's why we need a pasuk by the chatas. Only this one is in tzafain, but not Sar Nachshin. Okay, that works according to Rabbi Yehuda. You have your calculation. Hanich Rabbi Yehuda, but Rabbi Shimon, who says that Sar Nachshin is out to begin with, so you wouldn't even think to include him. Michael Amama, why do we need a special exclusionary term? To be might, Amar le Maryud, Mazur Tzubeder Tavi le Ravina. Even according to Rabbi Yehuda, I don't understand. Rabbi Yehuda Nami, Meinich, according to Rabbi Yehuda as well. How do you understand this? L'maydis Rabbi, with respect to smicha, where we have a explicit application to include the Sar Nachshin, it's Rabbi, so he's covered for that. But to an item, a concept, where he was not included. So why would I think otherwise? Why would I think to include him? Why do we need a special limiting term, a miyu, to exclude him? Why would I think he's included? But perhaps I would think. I would just assume that he's included. Not for the special miyu to exclude him. I would think, that we connect him through a binyan av. Just by comparison, by connection, assuming that he has the same status. And Rashi actually says, because by smicha it says v'samach al reish hachatos. Could have said al reish hachatos, coming to cover the. It's sort of a father example. It's a binyan av. It's a source for any chatos. That's what I would think. Slowly, 1 second. Let's just back up. Again, let's go back. Perhaps I would say, if not for the special miyut, to exclude Sa'ir Nachshin from tzafin. How about I would think? Teisi bin enough. We'll just assume. So the Shachat has achatas. Any chatas is covered. Even Sa'ir Nachshin requires tzafin. That's what I would think. Well, if a bin av can accomplish that, in kain smicha gufa, teisi bin av. So why do we have to find a pasuk for applying smicha to Sar Nachshin? Just have a binyan av. And this is Rashi. This is where Rashi makes this point, that by smicha it says v'samach al reish hachatos, instead of just saying al reish, to tell you any chatos needs a smicha. So why does Rabbi Yehuda have to go look for a pasuk that smicha applies to Nachshin? Apparently, it doesn't work. You can't just assume things. You know why? Sa'ir Nachshin was a one-time phenomenon. It's called Shah. One-time event, one-time celebration. You can't learn from daires, from long-term, standard karbanis. It's a different category, different type. Ella Shah midaires. Like you can't learn Shah from daires regarding smicha. Hachanami here as well regarding tzafon. What right do we have to even suggest? You can't learn Nachshin from daires. Tzafon applies to daires. Who says by Nachshin? So why do we need a special miyut to be memayit? Why would I think that he's included? You're right, says the Gemara. Let's backpedal. Velo oisay b'tzafon. Rather, the word oisay is telling you oisay b'tzafon. In general, a korban needs to be in tzafon while the shechita is taking place. Vein shechet b'tzafon, but the shechet himself, Rabbi Moshe Shechter, the one doing the shechita, doesn't have to stand on tzafon. He can stand right across the line in Durham. So let's skip the Sar Nachshin in such a way. Standard halacha. Shechita of a korban, shechet can be in Durham, and the korban in tzafon. Well, that we already know from elsewhere. Shechet, the fact that a shechet need not be in tzafim. Rabbi Chaya nafka. We learned that from elsewhere. The son of Chaya Omer. V'shachat oisay v'erach midvech tzafoyna. that the Karban Oila, Shachat Oisai, the animal itself was in Tzafon. Ma Tamalim. What's the point of the word Oisai in this pasuk? To exclude the person. Fishamatzino, because we find that in terms of Kabbalas Hadam, which is already the next step, and it's considered bona fide service, bona fide avodah, there the kohen actually has to be situated in the right location as well. He has to be standing in Safin. He can't stand on the other side of the line. Oymid bit Safin, and Mukabal bit Safin. He must be standing at Safin and doing the Kabbalah in Safin. Possible. If he's standing across the line and doing the Kabbalah in Safin, it's possible. Yochel perhaps Afsakain, the same would apply to a Sheikhet. The pasuk says only the animal, the carbon oiser but Safin, but the Sheikhet need not be standing in Safin. Okay, there's a source. We don't need another source for that. So back to the question. By the Soyer Nasi, it says V'shachat oisei. What's the word oisei coming to teach? Ella rather as follows: oisei bet Safin, ve'men af bet Safin. Only an animal carbon must be shechted in Safin, but a bird carbon. There, the malika, when they remove the head with the fingernail, with the nail, the thumbnail of the kohen, that need not be, doesn't have to take place in Safin. That's the point of oisei. The Sanyas, we have a brayso. Yochel perhaps yehei benoif ton Safin. Even a bird animal has to be done in Safin. V'dinu. You would assume so. Why? Based on a kal v'chaymer from an animal carbon. Ma ben soyin shlei kavalei koyin. Since even an animal carbon whose shchita does not require a koyin, even Yisrael can do shchita on an animal carbon. So despite that leniency, kavalei tzafay, the Torah established and required tzafay for shchita. Certainly a bird animal, a bird carbon which needs a koyin for malika, wouldn't you think has to take place in tzafay? And then certainly shikvalei tzafay tamalayma oisai comes the word oisai and says the only animals, not birds. Well, why would I even think to connect a bird to an animal? Mala ben tzayin shikein kavalei kli. Yeah, an animal carbon is in fact more strict than a bird carbon. It needs a kli on two accounts. Shchita must have a knife as opposed to a fingernail, and the Kabbalah must be done in a kli as opposed to by a bird. We don't need a kli for a Kabbalah, so you just spray the blood directly. So I wouldn't even suggest that a bird needs suffering. In which case, I don't need a miyut. So back to the question: what's the miyut for? The miyut is coming to exclude carbon pesach. To suspend the din suffering from a carbon pesach, despite it being an animal carbon, it doesn't need to be with suffering. Sanya. Hey, pesach ton suffering, perhaps. The tzafan location applies to carbon pesach as well. The shechita of the carbon pesach has to be in the suffering of the azara. Why would I think so? Based on a kal v'chaymer from an oila. A carbon oila, which doesn't even have a set time. You can bring it any time throughout the year during daytime, right? There's no special, Still, kavalei tzafin. Tzafin is required by the oila. Wouldn't you think a pesach? Certainly, kavalei zman has a very specific set time, only out of pesach in the afternoon. So it has higher, requirements. Wouldn't you think sheyigvalei tzafin? That tzafin is a requirement. Tamalaymar comes the pasuk and says oisai. Only him, only the chatas, only the oila, not the carbon pesach. Well, why would I even think mal oila shkein kol? How could I compare pesach to an oila? You know why an oila needs tzafin? Because he has kol, he's fully consumed on his back, which a pesach doesn't even have. I wouldn't even compare the two. Okay, mechatas, I would compare the carbon pesach to a chatas. Malach chatas shkein mechaperes. No, chatas has an advantage. It atones for a sin which a pesach doesn't have. So why would I even think to include the pesach and tzafin? Shkein mechaperes al chayve creases. It covers kares sins. Okay, I would compare a pesach to an asham, me'asham. Just as tzafin applies there, applies here. No, I can't compare. Asham belongs to the higher tier. Karbonis kachay kachim. Pesach is lower tier. Mikula nami. And suppose I would sort of use a common denominator type of formula. Just like all these karbonis require tzafin, Pesach as well. Shkin kachay kachim. No, they have something in common that the Pesach doesn't have. They're all kachay kachim. So why would I even compare? Why would I even think to compare? So back to the question again. Pasuk by the Karban Chatas of a Nasi says V'shachat oisai. What's the word oisai coming to exclude? Lo'olam k'davar mikara. The answer is, as we said earlier, to tell you that in general, only the animal needs to be situated in Safed, but not the one doing the Shechita. He can be standing right across the line. Oisai b'tzafin v'in shecha b'tzafin. Now, as to your question, we already know that from a different pasuk, from Rav Achi's pasuk. The Kashilach, regarding your question, the Rav Chaya Nafka, you're right, says the Gemara. Rather, they're coming to teach you the plain basic point that the Sheikhet could be standing across the line. That's unnecessary. We already know that. Ella rather is coming to tell you like this. 3 steps. The animal has to be in Tzafin. The Sheikhet doesn't. But for that, we don't need a pasuk. We already know that. The point is for the next level. A Sheikhet need not be standing in Tzafin. But a Mekabel, the Kohen doing the Kabbalah, he needs to be standing in Tzafin. So it's sort of a 3-step drasha. But the goal is to clarify that a Mekabel must be standing in Tzafin. Ella rather it's as follows. Ein Sheikhet b'Tzafin. The Sheikhet need not stand in Tzafin. Aval Mekabel b'Tzafin. That's the point of the drasha. Well, we already have a pasuk for that too. Remember, we had the pasuk on Naman Aleph on the bottom of Lokach, right? Loikach. Mekabel. To obligate the Mekabel to stand in Tzafin. Melokach. Right? Loikach. Loikach nafka. It's from there. Melokach lemashmali. Lokach lemashmali. This shita, this opinion, didn't learn the word, v'lokach that way, and therefore he required the special pasuk to obligate the makabel to stand in Safed. Okay, so again we have a pasuk by the Oila, by the Ben Soin, and by extension to the Ben Bakar as well. We have 4 psukim by Chatois to tell you all types of Karban Chatas need to be done with Tzafin, and it's Miyakiv. The animal has to be in Tzafin during Shechita, the Sheikhet does not. By Kabbalah, both the animal and the Kohen. We have 2 sources for that. Okay, now we know it's required. What about the fact that it's Miyakiv? Ashkron, we have established Shechita ba'olah mitzvah, that it's a mitzvah to shech the oil on the north. Kabbalah namal mitzvah. We have a pasuk by Kabbalah as well, that it's a mitzvah. What about that it's miyakiv? Ashkan shchita. The Kabbalah. So again, Ashkan shchita ba'olah mitzvah. We know that there's a mitzvah to do shchita of the oil b'tzaf. The Kabbalah Kabbalah Lisa Ashkan. Right? And we've established that there's a mitzvah to do the Kabbalah in Safin as well, as we learned back in Naman Aleph, right? Because it says Lokach, which is presumably the same place as the Shechita. Fine. Questions about whether it's critical, whether it's miyakiv. Shechita v'Kabbalah la'akiv minhu. How do we know Shechita and Kabbalah by the Oila is miyakiv? That Safin is miyakiv. No, how do we know that? Amar Vadavar Av V'Tema Rav Rashil. We know that by the Chatos it's miyakiv because of the 4 psukim as we discussed earlier. Now the Chatos is really a derivation of the Oila, right? Because the Oila is really where it says it. That's the source material. The Chatos is just sort of drawing from the Oila. Now, wouldn't you think that if we have a pasuk that it's mi'akev by the Chata, certainly it should be mi'akev by the Oila, who's the father figure, so to speak. Even a Chatas who's coming from the Oila, mi'akeves. So we know Tzafim by the Chatas is critical. Wouldn't you think, certainly by the Oila himself, Oila sheba Chatas mikach the Oila, who the Chatas is coming from, wouldn't you think Shemakeves that it's mi'akev by the Oila as well? Hold it. Who says? Malach Chatas Shkem Chaperes, perhaps, no. Chatas stands higher. It atones for severe sins. Maybe that's why it required Amar Avina Hakashile. Let me explain to Rav Rabba's question. It wasn't like he was based on a Kal V'chomer, which can be refuted. No, it's simple logic. It can't be otherwise. Klum Matzina, do we ever find a phenomenon such as this? That a tafel, that a second generation should be chomer min ha'ikar, should be more strict than the primary? If the chatas is mi'akev, certainly the oil. No? I'll show you an example. That a secondary can be more strict than the primary. V'loi, no, barei maser. Maser sheni, here's a good example. Maser sheni allows for redemption. You have Maser sheni fruit, you can't bring it to Yerushalayim, you redeem it, transfer kedusha on money. And Rashi explains, even if you're in Yerushalayim and it becomes tummy, you can't eat it, you redeem it. Very masas. The original maser material that grew off your farm, do nifta, you can redeem it. V'ilu, however, lokuach b'kesav maser in a nifta. Suppose he had maser sheni money, he bought food material, and now this food material is second generation, so to speak, food material, went sour. You have to go redeem it now. You can't do it. This is not as we learn in the Mishnah. Halukuach b'kesav maser. Food purchased with maser money, which becomes tummy, you can redeem it. We don't even know. We just says you got to bury it, you can't do anything, it's stuck. You can't do pidyon? Apparently, says Rashi, tafel chomer min ha'ikar. The second generation, the item that bought with maser sheni money is more strict and more severe than the original, which allows for pidyon. No, said the Gemara, that's not because it's more strict and more severe. It's the opposite. Because the kedusha in this second generation material has been weakened, has been downgraded, and doesn't allow for transfer and redemption. It's the opposite. Hasam der le'alima kedusha, say its holiness is not strong enough. The mitzvah is pidyon to latch on to its redemption. Basically, you cannot be. It's not transferable because of its weakness. It's the opposite. Well, so I'll bring you another example. Tamura. Tamura is a fellow who has a korban, takes a regular animal, and says, "I want the kedusha of the korban to be transferred, to be exchanged, to be extended." However, the halacha is that initially you cannot take a severely blemished animal and turn it into a korban. If you do so, it doesn't acquire kedushas haguf, inherent kedusha. It's not suitable for mizbeach. Rather, it becomes kedushas damim. It becomes monetarily kaddish, like any other hegdish possession. That only applies regarding initial kedusha. But if you were to do the tamura process using even a blemished animal, I want this blemished animal to receive kedusha from that korban, it works. Pasuk says even ra b'toiv, use a bad, deficient animal. So tamura works where original hegdish doesn't work. Apparently, a copy can be stronger than the original. The initial hegdish process, you can't initiate hegdish on a balmum kavua, on a permanently blemished animal. But tamura can work in this circumstance. So once you have the korban oila standing here, you bring along a severely blemished animal, you can make tamura. You can extend the kedusha onto the blemished animal. So you see that tafel is more chamer than ikar. Secondary is more powerful than the initial primary. Well, says the Gemara, just the opposite. Once again, tamura meikayach kacham ka'asi, just the opposite. The reason why the tamura works is because you already have an established active korban. You're just sort of expanding it. So once it's sort of been activated, you can just expand it even to a blemished animal. And exactly right, the initial kedusha, which is sort of starting from scratch, you're taking chulin and turning it into a korban. You're trying to activate a new korban. You can't do that if it's severely blemished. So if anything, it's just the opposite. It's proving our point. That it's all about what the source is, right? If you're coming from nothing to 0 to 1, it's harder than taking something which was already an existing kedusha and just expanding it. So it's all about what the source is. So back to our story, I wouldn't even entertain a thought to say that if Chatas who learns from the Oila, his suffering is so critical, certainly you can't say that the Oila would be less than that, because the Oila is really the source material for the Chatas. Says the Gemara, okay, one more question. Hari Pesach. I'll bring you a raya from a Korban Pesach. Dehu ein toin smicha nusachim. So we know that a Korban Pesach doesn't require smicha unasachim. You don't lean on the animal when you bring it. You don't bring the sachim. You don't wave the chazav v'shoik. But when you have a leftover Korban Pesach, an unneeded Korban Pesach, let's say set aside an extra korban as a backup, and then he doesn't need it anymore. What happens after Pesach? It's an extra korban. Halacha is it turns into a shlamim. You treat it as a shlam. That's the halacha. Here's a case where the original Korban Pesach did not require the smicha and all those activities and all those components. Vilu Moshe the day, but the leftover Korban Pesach after Pesach, unneeded Korban Pesach, ton is now considered a full-fledged shlamim and seemingly has higher standards. Ton smicha unasach v'shoik. How do you explain that? Answers the Gemara, no. This is not a new thing. He was really there all along. The original Korban Pesach already had potential for shlamim application as well. So it's not like it's a leftover Korban Pesach. What do you do with it? You turn it to a shlamim, which in a way upgrades it. No, initially, that's the way the Torah established the Korban Pesach system. An unneeded Korban Pesach is already now considered a shlamim. So it had that potential from the get-go. Pesach b'shai meis hashana shlamahu. An unneeded Pesach throughout the year is a shlamim. Says Rashi. Pesach mikri. It's not like, the leftover Pesach is such and such. So that would substantiate your question. It's not a tafel. It's not a secondary to a Pesach. It's original. It's a standalone korban shlamim. But certainly when something is derived, it can't be stronger than the original. Another terrorist to your question. The original question, how do we know that the tzafin factor is critical by the Oila? So instead of going through this back and forth, inferring from the Chatas, the pasuk says, Ha-Oila. It says, V'shachat es ha'chatzah mokem Ha-Oila. The extra hay of the Ha-Oila b'mkoim is telling you that location is in fact critical. So this is a repetition for emphasis to tell you that the mokim tzafin of the Oila is in fact mi'akiv. Okay, so bottom line, we know that tzafin is required and critical by the Oila. We have two limudim for that. By the chatas, we have repetitions as well. It applies to the shchita. Only the animal has to be in tzafin, but the sheichet can be in dar. We have by the Kabbalah as well. Both the animal and the makabel have to be tzafin. We learned that by the ben oif, by a bird, you don't need the tzafin. Likewise by the Pesach. Okay, that pretty much sums up today's daf. All the best to you and Hatzlacha.